Catching eels with long fishing lines is a traditional method but is still favored by many fishermen due to its effectiveness and ability to obtain stable yields in the natural environment. Especially in rivers, lakes or flooded fields where eels often live. Eels are a species that likes to hide in mud, crevices in rocks or dark, damp places, so catching them is not simple, requiring the worker to understand the habits of this species as well as be patient and meticulous in each stage of preparation. First, fishermen must choose a long, durable fishing line, usually a thick monofilament or sturdy parachute cord to ensure it can withstand the pulling force when the eel is hooked and struggles strongly. On the main fishing line, there will be many small fishing branches attached, each branch a certain distance apart so that many hooks can be dropped at the same time in different positions, increasing the ability to catch eels. The chosen hook must be compact, sharp and suitable for the eel's mouth so that when biting the bait, the eel is easily retained. Bait is also an important factor in determining success, often used by fishermen using earthworms, small fish, fresh meat or sometimes baits with a characteristic fishy smell to attract eels from the mud caves. When everything is ready, fishermen will choose locations with a lot of mud, dense bushes, where signs of eels often appear, then drop a long fishing line into the water and fix one end of the line to the shore or a sturdy bamboo pole. The process of waiting for the eel to bite usually takes place at night or early morning when the eel is active and easily lured by the smell of bait. When feeling the signal of the eel biting, the fisherman needs to pull the line skillfully, with enough force to keep the hook firmly in the eel's mouth but not too strong to cause the line to break or the eel to escape. After being pulled up, the eel often struggles violently and is slippery, so fishermen have to quickly put it in a basket or specialized container. This fishing method requires perseverance because it does not always produce immediate results. But in return, it can yield a significant amount if you know how to choose the right location and time. In addition, using long lines also helps fishermen save effort, allowing them to drop multiple lines at the same time and check periodically instead of having to constantly monitor. Although there are many more modern ways to catch eels today, long line fishing still retains its traditional characteristics, demonstrating the connection between people and nature and the experience passed down from father to son in the profession. This is not only a fishing technique but also part of the agricultural labor culture associated with long-standing river life once familiar with the method of catching eels with long fishing lines. Fishermen often draw valuable experiences to improve efficiency. One of the important experiences is choosing the right time to drop the line. Eels have the habit of hiding during the day and are only active at night or on cool, rainy days, when they leave their burrows to look for food. Therefore, people often take advantage of dropping the fishing line in the late afternoon and collecting it early the next morning for the best results. In addition, choosing a fishing location is also a factor that cannot be overlooked. Eels often live in flooded rice fields, pond banks with lots of weeds or river banks with thick mud. Sharp-eyed fishermen will recognize signs of eel residence through small holes on the mud surface, with newly stirred soil, thereby placing the fishing line in the right position to increase the chance of catching. Not only that, the bait must also be carefully prepared. Earthworms are usually cut into moderate pieces, while small fish or fresh meat need to be left with their natural fishy smell. Sometimes fishermen also incubate the bait for a short time so that the smell becomes stronger. Attracting eels from afar. The technique of inserting the fishing branch into the shore also requires skill, so that the hook sinks deep into the mud but still exposes the bait, making it easy for eels to bite. When checking the fishing line, the fisherman must be very careful because hooked eels often struggle very hard and are slippery, making it easy to slip out of the hand. Some people have invented the method of using small mesh bags or rough gloves to keep the eels safer. In many cases, a long fishing line can catch dozens of eels if the right place and time are chosen, creating a significant source of income for the family. For rural areas of the river, catching eels with long fishing lines is not only a way to make a living but also a rustic hobby. Working while immersing oneself in nature, the elderly often pass on to their children and grandchildren the secrets of how to choose the line, choose the hook, and how to handle the eel when it is stuck. As part of the unique cultural heritage of labor, this is what makes the eel fishing profession with long lines persist through many generations. Even though modern life has introduced many other means of exploitation, this method clearly demonstrates the patience, meticulousness, and ingenuity of humans when they know how to take advantage of natural laws to serve their daily needs, while still maintaining sustainability and being environmentally friendly. Not only stopping at catching eels for family meals. Longline fishing also has a clear economic value when many households consider this a stable source of income. Eels are nutritious food, with firm, delicious meat, and are favored by the market, so the selling price is quite high compared to many other types of freshwater fish. Experienced fishermen often drop longline fishing lines in many different areas at the same time, and the next morning they can collect them and bring back a large number of eels to sell to traders or supply to restaurants. Especially in the rainy season, when the natural source of eels is abundant, this is almost the golden time to increase production. However, longline fishing also has certain difficulties. This job requires the worker to wake up early, check the fishing lines in muddy conditions, sometimes encountering rain, wind, or annoying mosquitoes. In addition, if the fisherman does not know how to choose the right type of line and hook, the eel may bite the line or escape, causing a waste of effort. Some people also share that eels are very cunning. Sometimes they only nibble at the bait without getting hooked, forcing fishermen to constantly adjust the way they hook the bait to make it more secure. Although it is hard work, the joy of the fisherman is the feeling of joy when pulling up the fishing line with many eels hooked at the same time, the golden ones wriggling vigorously in the bamboo basket, bringing confidence in the worthy results of labor. In addition, maintaining this traditional method also contributes to ecological balance because it does not cause extinction like some other modern exploitation methods. People who catch eels with long fishing lines often only harvest according to demand or sell in moderate quantities, thereby preserving the natural eel source in the living environment. This is a harmonious combination between making a living and protecting resources, helping eel fishing to be sustainably associated with rural life. Over the years, the image of long fishing lines cast along the shore, waiting in silence, then harvesting early in the morning in simple joy, has become a beautiful memory associated with many generations of people living in the river area. The method of catching eels with long lines is also an opportunity for people to practice patience and delicacy in their work. Unlike using nets that can immediately catch fish, catching eels requires a process of waiting silently, sometimes all night, to get results. During that time, fishermen not only rely on luck but also rely on their accumulated experience to predict which locations will bite the hook more. Which bait is more attractive? That shows the understanding of nature, meticulous observation and flexible improvisation of the workers. Sometimes they only catch a few eels in a night, but sometimes they bring back a full basket, enough to sell or make a sumptuous meal for the whole family. It is this uncertainty that makes this job more interesting and engaging, because every day of catching is like a challenge with nature. In many rural areas, long-line fishing trips to catch eels have become a community activity. When adults teach children how to set up fishing lines, hook bait, and recognize signs of eel habitat, children follow their parents to the fields, learn to get used to mud, to hard work, and gradually develop a love for the traditional profession. This is how valuable experiences are passed down from generation to generation, helping the profession not to be lost in the hustle and bustle of modern society. Not only a way to make a living, long-line eel fishing also clearly reflects the close relationship between humans and nature. When people know how to rely on the biological laws of animals to find a reasonable way to make a living, without breaking the environmental balance, it is also from these seemingly simple jobs that the villages have built a hard-working, persistent lifestyle, cherishing the fruits of labor, contributing to enriching the cultural identity of Vietnamese rural areas. Besides the economic and cultural value, the method of catching eels with long fishing lines also has a profound spiritual meaning for many villagers. Every early morning, when the mist is still white on the fields, the fishermen carry baskets in one hand, pull the fishing lines in the other. While the rooster crows, they not only wait for the results of their labor but also enjoy the peace of their homeland. That image evokes a rustic, simple scene, but contains love for the land, love for the job and faith in life. The fat, round eels wriggling in the basket are not only a precious food source but also symbolize the results after much patience and hard work. Perhaps that is why this method is considered a beauty of traditional labor. Both slow and persistent, far from the hustle and bustle of urban life. In many folk tales or childhood memories of rural people, following parents to the fields to catch eels is always an unforgettable memory, associated with the sound of frogs croaking, the smell of mud and the eagerness of waiting. It is not only work but also a part of childhood, nurturing the soul and forming attachment to the homeland. Nowadays, although there are many modern means such as specialized traps or raising eels in tanks to supply the market, long-line fishing still holds its own position, both because of its efficiency and because of the familiarity that has been deeply ingrained in people's lives. It reminds people of a lifestyle in harmony with nature, knowing how to wait, knowing how to appreciate every small achievement, and valuing long-term sustainability over immediate benefits. It is these things that make the profession of catching eels with long lines not only exist as a livelihood technique, but also as a cultural symbol associated with the countryside, carrying the breath of the land and sky, of the working hands and of the love for the homeland passed down from generation to generation. If we look deeper, we will see that the way of catching eels with long fishing lines is not simply a technique but also a reflection of the life philosophy of the villages, living slowly. Patiently, relying on nature and in harmony with the environment. Fishermen are not impatient, they know how to wait in silence, to then reap worthy results. It is this waiting that creates a very unique beauty of labor. helping people to be attached to the fields, to the pond banks, to each flooded rice field. They not only hunt for eels as a product but also observe the changes of the seasons, of the weather, and then summarize them into life experiences. These experiences are sometimes not recorded in any books but are extremely valuable, because they are the result of many years of rolling around in the mud, of patience and of being attached to nature. That is why many people who leave their hometowns for the city still remember the scene of their childhood following their fathers to fish for eels, remembering the thrill of pulling up the line and seeing the golden eels wriggling vigorously. That is an unforgettable memory, associated with the rustic childhood and the peace of the countryside. In the context of modern society, when many traditional occupations are gradually replaced by machines and technology, the method of catching eels with long fishing lines is still maintained because of its sustainability and the humanistic values it brings. It both meets the need for food, preserves identity, and teaches people lessons about perseverance, honest work and respect for nature. It can be said that long fishing lines not only connect people with eels in the deep mud but also connect previous generations with future generations. Connect the past with the present, so that even though time passes, those rustic values are still intact in the lives of Vietnamese rural people. It is undeniable that catching eels with long fishing lines is a vivid demonstration of human creativity in the process of making a living. With just a strong rope, small hooks and a few typical fishy baits, the villagers have turned them into effective tools to exploit one of the most difficult aquatic species to catch. This method does not require expensive machines, does not create noise or pollute the environment. But still ensures a significant yield. Because of this simplicity but effectiveness, the method of catching eels with long fishing lines has persisted through many generations, becoming a part of the rhythm of life in the river villages. The image of a diligent fisherman walking along the edge of the rice field, gently dropping each fishing line, then happily pulling up a basket full of eels in the early morning, is a beautiful and peaceful picture of labor. It not only reflects diligence but also demonstrates the spirit of harmony with nature, knowing how to take advantage of what nature gives without depleting resources. From another perspective, this method also nurtures community cohesion. The sessions of dropping lines together, sharing experiences in choosing bait, or sitting by the fire to grill newly caught eels all create a strong bond between people. It is not only labor but also spiritual life, culture, and memories. Therefore, catching eels with long fishing lines is not only a profession, a way of making a living, but also a valuable spiritual heritage of the villages, preserving simple but lasting values, so that every time it is mentioned, everyone feels nostalgic about a countryside full of humanity and filled with the breath of nature over time. The method of catching eels with long fishing lines has maintained its vitality because it not only serves practical needs but also carries within it the traditional beauty associated with rural life. Today, although many households have learned about eel farming in cement tanks or using modern traps to increase productivity, in the plains, midlands or riverside areas, the method of dropping long fishing lines is still present as an irreplaceable habit. After working in the fields, farmers often take advantage of the afternoon to prepare bait, tie the lines and go to the fields to fish, and the next morning they excitedly go to harvest. This cycle repeats itself, creating a familiar rhythm of life, both working and nurturing simple joys. For them, each eel caught not only has material value but is also the result of patience and experience. a testament to the ability to bond and harmonize with nature. In the early mornings when they go to collect fishing lines, when the first sunlight of the day shines down on the sparkling fields, the villagers can find peace there, because they know that yesterday's diligence has brought today's results. Perhaps that is why the profession of catching eels with long fishing lines has gone beyond the scope of a fishing technique, to become a part of the memory, a part of the soul, a part of the identity of the homeland. It reminds us of peaceful days, where people and nature are one, where work is not only a way to make a living but also a source of pride and love for the homeland. Catching eels with long fishing lines also suggests many valuable lessons for today's life. The ancient farmers taught that to have results, one must be persistent, diligent and understand the laws of nature. Just like casting a fishing line, one cannot be impatient and expect to have eels in the basket right away. But must wait all night, must choose the right place, the right time, and the right way to place the bait. It is the harmony between human intelligence and the movement of nature. That lesson, if viewed broadly, is also a philosophy of life: patience, diligence, knowing how to wait for the right opportunity, and eventually you will reap the sweet fruit you deserve. In addition, this traditional method also affirms the sustainability of resource exploitation, not destroying or depleting the living environment, only taking enough to feed the family and trade. The way of catching eels with long fishing lines is a typical image of a green lifestyle, close to and respectful of nature. In the modern context, when people are increasingly dependent on technology and massive exploitation, the value of this method becomes even more precious. It reminds us that sometimes the simplest and most rustic ways are the most sustainable. And so, the image of villagers fishing for eels in the afternoon, then early in the morning. Bringing back a basket full of them in simple joy, will live forever as a beautiful symbol of traditional labor, of love for the homeland, and of the ingenuity of knowing how to live in harmony with nature. Also, from the method of catching eels with long fishing lines, people realize the strong attachment between people and the land and rivers. Fishing lines are dropped into flooded fields, pond banks, and canals not only to find eels but also to the rhythm of the crops. With the smell of young mud, the sound of frogs and the full moon shining on the water, it is a simple but poetic picture of labor, reflecting the peaceful yet arduous life in the countryside. It is in those moments that villagers find faith and strength to stick with their profession, to support their families and preserve their ancestors' customs. The plump eels wriggling in their baskets are not only products exchanged at the market, but also a symbol of perseverance and diligence. In many villages, each eel season brings back childhood memories of many people. When every night they followed their parents to cast fishing lines, wading in the flooded rice fields, then anxiously waiting the next morning to see how many eels were hooked. Those memories become spiritual assets, closely associated with the rustic lifestyle, so that when they grow up, every time they think about their homeland, they vaguely see the image of a long fishing line lying still in the murky water, waiting for the cunning eels to come. It can be said that this fishing method is both a livelihood, a memory, and an unforgettable cultural beauty, proving the everlasting vitality of the traditional profession in the hearts of the people. Through each generation, the method of catching eels with long fishing lines not only exists as a means of earning a living but also becomes a part of the living heritage, passed down from father to son as a valuable skill. The elderly often tell their children stories related to the profession. On a bright moonlit night, they go fishing at the edge of the rice field. The next morning they pull up a basket full of eels, or sometimes After a night of heavy rain, the fishing line only catches a few small fish. But the joy and patience are not lost. From there, the younger generation gradually learns to be diligent, appreciates the labor force and loves their homeland more. Not only that, eels caught with long fishing lines often appear in family meals, becoming rustic and nutritious dishes such as braised eel with banana and bean curd, stir-fried eel with lemongrass and chili, eel porridge. These dishes have a strong rustic flavor, are both delicious and sweet, and contain close family affection. It can be said that from the catching stage to the processing stage, eels have been closely and familiarly associated with rural life. Thanks to that, the profession of catching eels with long fishing lines not only brings material value but also contributes to enriching spiritual life, helping to preserve the flavor of the homeland in every meal, every memory and every story told in the village. And until today, the image of a long fishing line lying still under the mud, waiting patiently, is still a symbol of the diligence, simplicity but perseverance of the villages. As an indispensable part of the soul of Vietnamese river culture, when mentioning the method of catching eels with long fishing lines, people can clearly see the ingenuity and creativity in every small detail that fishermen have accumulated over many generations. Each countryside has its own variations in the way of making fishing lines. Some places use thin fishing lines to avoid being detected by eels. Some places prefer large parachute cords to prevent breaking when large eels struggle. Fishing hooks are not all the same. Some areas are sharpened very sharp and curved to hold tightly. Others are sharpened to make it difficult for the eel to release. Even the way to hook the bait is an art.